Welcome to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happens every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Carolyn. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You have something very exciting coming up, Danielle. Tell us about it.
Tomorrow, I am running in the Colfax Half Marathon. I got my new hat on, which actually matches the WNBA shirt I have on. You know, I love the color orange, so I'm hoping I can run as good as I feel this hat looks.
What is your goal?
My goal is to PR.
Okay.
We will see. My PR was from when I was 25 years old, back in Pennsylvania when I was in grad school, so it'll be interesting to see if I can run faster than that.
The next time we record, you'll have to give an update.
I will. I guess sub 1:48:56, I think, is my PR. Trying to get faster than that, and a little nervous for tomorrow, but also very excited. I know I put in the work, so no matter what happens, just happy with how training went.
Can you tell us what you've done differently from a previous training to this training?
Sure. So shout out to our friend Paul. He has been coaching me through the training cycle this time. I've never worked with a coach and he's recently certified, so that's been really cool. In the past, I just follow plans that I find in a book that I have. Definitely put in a ton more miles throughout this training cycle, more than I've ever done week over week. So that's been good. He's been building in a lot of threshold running and speed work. So I'm really hoping that helps with the race.
Yeah, I went for a run with you during your training and I noticed immediately how much faster you got. So very cool to see. And I hope it goes well.
Thanks. Obviously, that's a highlight for me personally, but let's get into the sports highlights from this week.
I want to start with the Professional Women's Hockey League, the PWHL. They are in the playoffs right now. We have our 2 finalists, which is very exciting. There are now only 2 teams left, Boston and Minnesota. Boston eliminated Montreal last Tuesday night following a 3-2 overtime victory to sweep their semifinal series 3-0. And as a reminder, Boston was the number 3 seed.
I'd also like to say, I feel like anytime the U.S. beats Canada in hockey, it's a huge deal.
You're feeling very patriotic about that.
I just know that Canada is really big into hockey and always has been. So for the U.S. to beat them like that, just think it's cool.
The Boston team, all their games against Montreal, all 3 of them went into overtime. They're playing a best of 5. The second game went into triple overtime. Craziness.
Triple overtime?
Yes. And 5 of the 7 games between the 2 teams this season went into overtime. So
Wow.
This is a really good matchup between the 2 and 3 seed. This series included the longest game in Professional Women's Hockey League history at over 111 minutes 2 Saturdays ago now with that triple overtime game.
Ooh, those women must have been exhausted. The way they sprint in their skates is just crazy. And the amount of added weight they have from their gear, they must have been exhausted.
I can't imagine. Taylor Wenskowski clinched in triple overtime. She was the one who scored in the second game. And then in game 3, Erin Frankel set a Professional Women's Hockey League saves record for a second straight game. She had 56 saves in the second game.
Woo!
56.
That's a lot of shots on goal and a lot of saves.
In game 3, they fell behind 2-0 in the second period. They came back and won, and she finished with 32 saves. Susanna Tapani scored her second overtime winner of the series in this third game to clinch and head themselves into the finals. If you are not watching the PWHL, it's time to start.
Yeah.
It actually was time to start months ago, but it is definitely time to start now because these games are going into overtime. They're going into double overtime, triple overtime, and they are putting on a show everywhere they go. Minnesota advanced to the PWHL finals with a 4-1 victory against Toronto on Friday night. Minnesota was down 2-0 in the series, so they had lost the first 2 games and then came back and won 3 in a row to beat Toronto. Toronto was the number 1 seed. Minnesota was the number 4 seed. So this is huge. Taylor Heisey scored twice, including the tie-breaking goal in the third period when they beat them 4-1 last Friday night to advance to the Walter Cup final. Taylor Heisey was the top pick in September's first ever PWHL draft, so very cool for her. Notably, Toronto was missing their star forward Natalie Spooner, who led the league in both goals and points in a regular season. She suffered from a season-ending knee injury in Game 3. So hoping for a speedy recovery for her, but just really amazing to see Boston and Minnesota now heading to the first ever PWHL finals. Both the lower seeds won. The finals game schedule, game 1 will have already happened by the time this podcast release, but game 2, Minnesota at Boston, will be on Tuesday when we release May 21st at 7 p.m. Game 3, Boston at Minnesota on Friday, May 24th at 7 p.m. And again, this is a best of 5 series, so they will continue on if they need to. What do you have for us this week to highlight?
I'm going to highlight women's college lacrosse NCAA. The Final Four is set. The remaining 4 teams had something in common in their quarterfinal matchups. They all scored double digits in those games and held their opponent to single-digit goals.
Ooh.
So I thought that was really interesting when looking at the stats from all those games.
That is a cool stat. And again, shout out to all the lacrosse goalies. Man, what a beatdown.
Seriously. In the quarterfinals, Boston College beat Michigan 14-9. Northwestern beat Penn 27. So right there you have your matchup. 2 teams that have been in the Final Four / championship, not year over year, but a lot of years. Florida beat Maryland 15-9. This was a big upset.
Wow.
And then Syracuse beat Yale 19-9.
It's interesting to have a Southern team, and I don't think lacrosse conferences work the exact same as other conferences, but it's interesting to have a team like Florida. Usually this is very much dominated by the Northeast.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about that a little more, but real quick. So the Final Four will take place next Friday, May 24th on ESPNU. Northwestern will take on Florida at 3 p.m. Eastern. And Boston College will take on Syracuse at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. So we've talked about 3 of the 4 of these teams in past episodes on some level.
Northwestern, Boston College, Syracuse, yes.
Correct. We have not talked about Florida, and to your point, usually those Southern teams aren't as good in the lacrosse world. So I do want to talk a little bit about Florida because they are having a hell of a season. First, they, going into this tournament, were ranked 15 overall, and their current record is 20-2. So that's nothing to just blow off. That's a great record.
That is amazing.
They haven't lost since February 17th.
Oh my gosh, it is May.
Yes. Now, their season started on February 10th, I believe. They haven't lost since the beginning of the season, basically. I think it was their 3rd game of the season was their last loss.
Wow.
I'm going to review their top 6 goal scorers because all of these scorers have 30 or more goals on the season, so I felt like I couldn't keep any of them off. So senior Maggie Hall leads all scorers with 60 goals on the season.
Cash.
Senior Danielle Pavanelli with 54 goals. Grad student Emily Heller, 46 goals. Senior Ashley Gonzalez with 34 goals. And then senior Madison Waters and grad student Sarah Falk with 30 goals each.
So they are spreading those goals around.
And they're either all seniors or grad students.
Yes.
That just shows how much experience is on the team as well. A lot of seniors and grad students. In their most recent win over number 4 Maryland, like I said, this was an upset. Maggie Hall led all scorers with 6 goals. No surprise there as she's leading the team this year. And she tied her career high in goals that game with 6. Hall is just the 3rd player in program history to score 6 or more goals in an NCAA tournament game and one of 7 players to have 7 or more points. Hall broke the all-time record for most points in a season, passing Lindsay Ronbeck's total of 107.
Very cool.
And points, it's a mix of assists and goals.
Gotcha.
The Gators scored the first goal in the first 32 seconds of the game and then went on a 9-0 run. So from the start, they were like, Maryland, goodbye.
Yeah, hard to come back from that.
Yeah. The Gators defense held Maryland to a season low in shot percentage, .250, and shot on goal percentage, .528. The Gators have held all 3 opponents to under 10 goals in this NCAA tournament.
That's really impressive.
So impressive. So I talked a ton about their offense, but their defense is doing a great job as well. And then Elise Fennell earned her 9th straight win in the cage.
What is that? What's a cage?
The goalie. Your favorite. Stopping 10 shots in this victory. It was her 7th game this season with double-digit save. I know the other 3 teams are great. We've talked about them before, but I would have to say watch out for the Gators.
This might be the first time I root for Florida in anything.
Oh, should I do the chomp,
No.
chomp?
I will never do a Gator chomp. I will never, ever do a Gator chomp, but I do love an underdog story.
Be on the lookout this coming weekend and make sure, like Carolyn said with hockey, if you haven't watched lacrosse yet, now is your time to start watching. All right, we're going to do things a little differently this week. We've been doing a lot of deep dives, and back to our, I think, first episode.
Our first episode, yes.
We did a quote-unquote scouting report.
So a scouting report is really just a closer look into our particular team. In this case, we're going to go into the WNBA league and just give a real 101 of what we saw in the first game and who we're working with. We know that a lot of people are new to watching the WNBA, and so we hope that this is a very good primer as you continue to watch these games.
Yes. And before we dive into the first few games of the season, I want to talk a little bit about viewership because I know that's been top of mind for a lot of people and it's been something that's been getting talked about. So the Suns versus Fever game this year in Clark's WNBA debut on the league's opening night, which was on Tuesday, drew an average of 2.1 million viewers on ESPN2, ESPN Plus, and Disney Plus and peaked at 2.3 million viewers. This topped ESPN's previous mark of nearly 1.5 million viewers for Phoenix Mercury versus Connecticut Sun game on May 22nd, 2004 in Diana Taurasi's rookie season.
Wow.
20 years ago.
20 years. And you saying Mercury is just one of my favorite things.
Okay, then.
Can you say it again for everyone?
Mercury.
Mercury.
I'm doing my best here, people.
I love it. I'm not going to try to change it.
It's that Jersey accent.
I don't know if we can blame this on New Jersey, but the Phoenix Mercury.
Anyways, moving on. Prior to this year, I would like to note that viewership was showing a rising pattern. Again, you mentioned there's obviously a lot of new viewers. People have been following Caitlin Clark, especially after her senior year at Iowa. But just want to note that this viewership has been rising the past couple years. Last year in 2023, this was the most viewed regular season on ABC in 11 years.
So this is what I'm talking about when it's a perfect storm. So we have people who are very interested in Caitlin Clark and are going to follow her and attract more viewers. But viewership has been steadily increasing among the WNBA. So it's not just one person. It is this league's dedication to marketing and to getting more people viewing and to the fans who have been supporting from the very beginning. And it's just continuing to rise. So this is just like this perfect storm.
Yeah. And we have to give kudos to Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner, because she is very smart. She came from Deloitte. She led one of the top Big Four firms. She knows what she's doing and she's helped get to this point with the viewership. Obviously, having such good players across the board helps, but we need that marketing. People need to know how to watch these games. So the 2023 WNBA regular season reached over 36 million total unique viewers across all national networks, the highest since 2008 and up to 27% from 2022.
So a 27% increase from 2022 to 2023. And now we're just going to see that go up even higher. This is amazing. This is such good timing.
And the 2023 AT&T WNBA All-Star Game on ABC was the most watched WNBA All-Star Game in 16 years. Just wanted to point that out. With all the excitement, 2023 was also a great year for increased viewership.
So can you tell me, besides Caitlin Clark, who are the people we should know?
That's a great question because I think with all the eyes on the WNBA, people are all of a sudden Fever fans. You're following Caitlin Clark. She was drafted to the Fever. So now you have all these people. I'm gonna root for the Fever. There are a lot of great players in the league. We should name just a few of them. So as of May 9th, ESPN released top 25 WNBA players. Obviously, this was before their regular season actually kicked off. So this is a lot to do with stats from the 2023 season. I'm really embarrassed because none of these players made it to my top 5 on the draft we just did in our last episode. So shame on me.
What would you do differently if you could choose to change maybe even one player?
I should have put Brianna Stewart over Sabrina.
Okay, great. Let's set the record straight on that because I agree. Yes, let's get into this.
This is
I think any 5 of these you could have put over.
Well, you stole Asia. I would have picked her in a heartbeat. But anyways, this isn't about me. So let's just get into...
Danielle, you could have.
I know. Shame on me, like I said. Okay, as of May 9th, 2024, ESPN released top 25 players going into the season, starting with number 1, Asia Wilson on the Las Vegas Aces. Asia Wilson is a 6'4" forward, and her 2023 stats, 22.8 points per game, 9.5 rebounds, and 2.2 blocks per game.
The blocks alone are a reason to watch her.
And her personality, just all around, so much fun. I love Asia.
If you do not follow her on Instagram or Twitter, you have to, because she's a certain level of petty. And it is such a great follow. When we think about what's going to take the WNBA forward, it is these big personalities, and Asia Wilson is that. And not only is she that big personality, she also has the stats to back it up. And she was in my top 5 women's athletes of all time.
And she's a former Gamecock. Go Cox.
Yes.
Number 2, Brianna Stewart on the New York Liberty. 6'4" forward, 2023 stats, 23 points per game, 9.3 rebounds, and 3.8 assists. Moving on to Alyssa Thomas from the Connecticut Sun, 6'2" forward, and in 2023 she had 15.5 points per game, 9.9 rebounds per game, 7.9 assists. She also leads the league in triple doubles. So all 3 of these top 3 players were in the running for MVP last year, and Brianna Stewart won the league MVP.
Asia Wilson won the finals MVP, and there was some drama last year. The voting is through the media for MVP, and someone in the media had Asia Wilson so low.
It's just ridiculous.
It was totally disrespectful, and Asia went at them. And when they won the
For good
finals, she
reason.
was her teammates were like, "Who was it? We know who you are."
Oh yeah,
that
that team is so
funny.
great. Okay, moving on. Jonquel Jones, New York Liberty, 6'6" forward. She's just a beast. 2023 stats, 11.3 points per game, 8.4 rebounds, and 1.3 blocks. And then number 5, Nafisa Collier from the Minnesota Lynx, 6'1" forward. 2023 stats, 21.5 points per game, 8.5 rebounds per game, 1.6 steals per game. That's great. So the point here is I can go on and on about how good all these players are, and I'd love to just sit here and say the top 25. I'll stop at 5. My point is, please, when you are watching the game, start to take note of other players, because yes, Caitlin Clark is a great player, and there's so many other good players. If you're new to the league, I just want to say that these are some names you could look out for, and maybe you'll find that you have a new favorite player. I don't know. It's exciting to see all these viewers come in, and we just had someone say to us this week, went into the New York Liberty versus Fever game, a Fever fan, and left as a New York Liberty fan, which is so cool.
It's really cool to see. And this is what we wanted, right? It's going to be easy to find players you like because there's so many good players in the game. And we'll get into this a little bit, but Caitlin Clark is that good, and she's not underrated. What is underrated is how good the WNBA players are.
Correct.
They've been underrated their entire career, and now people are starting to see just how amazing they are and how quickly the game moves. I get chills thinking about it. It's just a really cool time to be a women's sports fan.
So true. With all that being said, let's dive into the first few games of the season. So we are going to cover the first games for every single team.
Yep.
So far, just to dive into what is the season going to look like? What were the first games like? Carolyn, let's kick it off.
The first game of the season for the entire WNBA was the Liberty versus Mystics. Liberty beat the Mystics 85-80. Jonquel Jones, who we just mentioned, had 25 points and 8 rebounds. Woo! She is 6'6". She was hitting threes like a shooting guard.
Yeah.
I was so impressed. She is also wide and can just take people down on the inside. We watched not in Liberty versus Mystics, but when Liberty played Fever. And Aaliyah Boston, Rookie of the Year in 2023, Jonquel Jones was just dominant.
And she makes her look tiny.
She does make...
It's insane.
Which Aaliyah Boston is not tiny, and Jonquel Jones does make her look tiny.
It's interesting watching the Mystics play in the past. Probably could have called myself a Mystics fan because you know one of my favorite players is Della Don.
Elena Della Don.
Elena Della Don is unfortunately not playing this season. She's not really retired. I don't really know what's
She's had some
going
health
on.
issues. She didn't want to be on the Mystics this year, but they kept her, and now she is not playing for medical reasons. So
yes, I miss watching her play, but she's been struggling with some injuries the past couple of years. But anyways, they won a championship a few years ago with her on the team. Natasha Cloud used to be on that team. So it's just interesting seeing all these new players, and all the teams across the board are pretty much new, all the trades that happened and the draft. But they're going to be good this year. Aaliyah Edwards from UConn, who just got drafted, a rookie, she is just stepping in and looks like she's been in the league forever. And the announcers even said, Aaliyah Edwards just has a body for the WNBA. Like, her body was made for this. And I feel like she's just off to a really great start. And she had 6 points that game.
Also for the Mystics, Ariel Atkins had 20 points and Brittany Sykes had 14 points and 10 rebounds. Like we said, they did end up losing 85-80. They look a lot better than I thought they were going to look. The Liberty also looked very strong.
Yeah.
They got right into a groove as they went into their next game against the Fever. They're going to be a very difficult team to beat. And they were a difficult team to beat last year, and they're just rolling right on forward.
Yeah, and the Mystics were even up 67-59 going into the fourth quarter, but then New York kind of just took over. Next up, we had the Connecticut Sun versus Indiana Fever, and the Connecticut Sun won 92-71. And again, this was Caitlin Clark's WNBA debut game.
Caitlin Clark had 20 points and 10 turnovers. There was a lot of chatter after about her debut, about expectations. And again, it is so difficult because there are such high expectations for Caitlin Clark. She is young, she is a rookie, and she's on a team. She got drafted first, which means she's on one of the worst teams in the league that has just been struggling lately. You said something that was really important because there were a couple fouls on her that people were getting upset about.
In the first half.
There was some really weird responses like, this is bad for the WNBA that Caitlin's not doing well. And you said something, and I want you to say it because I was like, yes.
Yeah, basically I just said, let's not treat the WNBA as this fragile thing.
Yeah.
People are going to show up to these games, and there's going to be people who are mad to see her not play as well, but there's going to be people who see, holy crap, these women are amazing, that they haven't watched. I think no matter what, it's not a bad thing. Even if she doesn't play, quote unquote, her best, people are still going to tune in because these other women are playing amazing, and it's so fun to watch.
Caitlin Clark will bring more eyes. She does not need to put the entire WNBA on her back.
Yeah.
And I hope she knows that, and I hope she feels that, because there are players like Asia Wilson, like Brianna Stewart, like Jonquel Jones, like Alyssa Thomas, who we're going to talk about, who have been here and can say, you don't need to drop 50. We'll be just fine. And get yourself settled in and get yourself moving. You don't have to have all of this pressure. Like you said, viewership in 2023 was up 21%. The WNBA had their highest total attendance in 13 years last year. And no matter what, there's going to be people who want to shit on the WNBA. If Caitlin Clark went off in her first game, if she dropped 50, everyone would have been like, see, all the WNBA players suck and they needed Caitlin Clark. And then the flip side happened where she didn't do her best and people are like, this is bad for viewership. People aren't going to watch if she gets beat. No, the WNBA is not fragile. Welcome. Find some teams you like. Continue to support Caitlin Clark. Whatever you need, they're going to need the support as they move through this season. It's not fragile. It's an amazing league to watch and welcome. Unfortunately, because Caitlin Clark represents more than Caitlin Clark, anytime anyone plays her, they're going to be playing their best ball because they know more people are watching. So they're like, hey, watch me. Dejanay Carrington in that game was like,
her defense
watch
was
me.
Unbelievable.
I'm awesome.
She is so good.
Yes. So in that game, Connecticut Sun versus Indiana Fever, Alyssa Thomas recorded her 9th career triple-double. She has 9 career triple-doubles. The entire rest of the WNBA has 21. So she is a walking triple-double. She had 13 points, 10 rebounds, 13 assists. Her shot is not the prettiest.
She's had some issues with her shoulder surgery. So if you see her and you're wondering why she shoots like that, that's why. It looks unathletic when you see it, but you have to know this woman is playing on a bum shoulder and she still somehow records triple-doubles and is one of the best players in the league.
Her fiance, DeWanna Bonner, and I don't want to just say, I'll list the stat and you'll know that she's not just a fiance. DeWanna Bonner moved up to 5th on the WNBA's all-time scoring list with a 20-point performance in that game. Them together on the same team just works really, really well.
Do you think we could play on the same WNBA team?
So there was one point where DeWanna Bonner hit a shot and Alyssa Thomas, you could tell, looked at her with so much love in her eyes. I fantasize that would be us.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'd much rather be on your team than be playing against you, because when I'm playing against you and something doesn't go my way and goes your way, you giggle and that infuriates me.
Yep.
Let's move on to the Aces versus Mercury. Aces won 89-80.
And the Aces are, just as a reminder, back-to-back former champions.
They won in 2022, 2023. They are going for that
They're going
three-peat.
for a three-peat.
They got their rings on this game.
Oh, my.
The rings are huge.
And that box that the rings came in
I
are
know.
so insane.
So they got
boxes.
their rings from the 2023 championship before this game. And yeah, the boxes had a video inside that were playing their highlights. It was crazy. They came out in the first quarter so hot.
Yeah.
Too hot because they fizzled off and it got very, very interesting. But they came out real hot in the first quarter. Diana Taurasi on the Mercury.
She's just...
was also on fire in 20th year in the WNBA and just dropped 23 points.
Just in her 40s, and she's still balling out like that. It's ridiculous.
And still trash talking and still going back and forth with Kelsey Plum.
That matchup was great.
Kelsey Plum plays for the Aces. They were exchanging shots, exchanging glances, exchanging some words. It was awesome. Asia Wilson finished that game with 30 points, 13 rebounds, and 3 blocks. Blocks get me so fired up. They just make my day. Also, the city of Las Vegas came into their locker room and said that they had a little bit of an offer for them and offered a sponsorship for each player for $100,000.
If you have not seen this video, I recommend watching it because watching the women's reactions, just fun and so cool. And they even said, you don't need to do anything to get this money.
Yeah.
We're giving it to you. And if you three-peat, it's icing on the cake.
The most Las Vegas thing I've ever seen to just give players $100,000. And for those who don't have as much sponsorship or are a rookie, to get $100,000,
that's a big chunk of change.
Chunk of change for some of these women. Just a really cool thing to see. And maybe other cities will step up, but what I would really actually rather see is that they just get paid more.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Lynx versus Storm. Minnesota Lynx beat the Seattle Storm 83-70.
Afisa Collier, also mentioned in top 5 players from the Lynx, had 20 points on the game.
Nneka Ogwumike for the Storm had 20 points, and both Skylar Diggins-Smith and Jewel Lloyd, who play for the Storm, were just off in their shooting percentage. They just couldn't find their groove. Not a hugely strong start for the Storm. The other thing that I want to mention is that Nico Mule, who was drafted for the Storm, was ruled out of the season opener. She didn't play in the second game for the Storm either because of visa approval issues. What are we doing? How are we not getting this figured out? She is now working. So what visa does she need? She's not the only...
There's different visas for different
countries. And that's what we're learning more and more, is that some countries are easier to come from than others. So there must be some kind of visa mix up here. But can we get this figured out?
I know. She was able to play at UConn because of her student visa, but now she needs a working visa. And it's just really unfortunate to see. So I'm hoping she gets that figured out soon. We will go to Chicago Sky and Dallas Wings. Another great matchup. There's so many good players on both teams I love to watch. Arike Gumbawale and Marina Mabry both played at Notre Dame. Oh my God, were they going at it? Marina Mabry, first of all, is such a trash talker. And I've heard on other podcasts, players being interviewed, and they'll say she's the biggest trash talker in the league.
You can see her the whole time. Yes. Hold on, but let's back up. The Wings won 87-79.
Okay, sorry. I'm getting excited because I really enjoyed this matchup. So the Wings won 87-79.
And Arike Ogunbowale plays for the Dallas Wings, and Marina Mabry plays for the Chicago Sky.
Yes. So they were going at it the whole game. Literally, Arike went for a steal at one point and knocked Marina down. And Marina was just going nuts at the ref saying it's an effing foul. So mad. And Arike kind of went to pick her up, but Marina was just so mad.
Yeah.
So it's just funny. Like, I know they're friends. And when it comes to game time, she does not give an F about what's going on. So anyways, back to the game. I just love to see that.
And the other thing is that when Marina Mabry was guarding Arike and Arike had the ball, it was almost like I could see in Arike's face, I am not passing the ball to anyone. I am just going to shoot this directly in her face and make it to prove a point.
And Arike Gumbawale is so good, so clutch. So if you have not watched her yet, please do. So fun.
And Maddie Segrist, who plays for the Dallas Wings,
Yes.
in her second year, only played 18 minutes, had 13 points in those 18 minutes. Very cool.
Yes. Watching her play, I was like, okay, it felt like she was playing more minutes than she did when I was actually watching because of how well she was playing. And I would say last year in her rookie season was off to a little bit of a slow start. She came from Villanova, was one of the top scorers in college that year. It's cool to see her start stepping into her WNBA career and stepping up. So I was happy for her on that.
Yeah, and Angel Reese played as well, 12 points, 8 rebounds.
She's off to a great rookie season as well.
There were a couple of times where on defense, she made Maddie Segrist look like a second-year player. She was putting in the work. Arike Gumbawale ended with 25 points. Ooh. And the Dallas Wings ended with 4 players in double figures. That means it was spread out. It's a good thing to see.
And it's a great win, especially when you have a lot of players scoring. And Lotto, who sings our walkout song from our wedding, was also there. They asked her why she was there, and she said Angel Reese. So I just love it.
Yeah, let's get the stars there. The more star power, the better.
Lastly, Atlanta Dream played LA Sparks.
The Atlanta Dream won 92-81.
Interestingly enough, they had to play this game at California State
Long Beach,
which I was like, why are they playing there? But their stadium is going under construction.
The LA Sparks.
Yes. So it just threw me off a little bit. But was happy to see, one of my past favorite players from college. Taylor Jones, last year as a rookie, did not play very much for the Atlanta Dream. So saw her in the game getting some minutes. I'm hoping she continues to grow just because I personally like her.
She ended the game with 14 points.
And that's pretty damn good for her and anyone, honestly, to score.
Cameron Brink for the LA Sparks has been looking very good. She hit a 3 in the second quarter, and her smile after she hit that 3 was so big. And she is not a 3-point shooter. She started senior year at Stanford to start to hit some, but she hit that 3. She hit another one later in the game. It's one thing to just be so stoic, but she hit that 3 and her smile was just like ear to ear. It's cool to see when they're new pros. She finished the game with 11 points. To me, out of the rookies so far, she has been the most impressive. I think she needs to get a little bit stronger.
Yes.
Because I don't know how she's ever going to go up against Jonquel Jones. Rickea Jackson for the LA Sparks, another rookie, finished with 7 points. And then the Dream just went on a roll. Ryan Howard for the Dream.
She's so good.
Oh my gosh. She is so good, both offensively and defensively. She is breaking ankles. She broke someone's ankles, stared them down, and then shot it and made it. She ended with 25 points. So fun to watch. And then Laisha Clarendon from the LA Sparks finished with a triple-double, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, and 11 points. Atlanta Dream are looking good. Sparks put up a pretty good fight. We'll see how it goes as the season continues.
So excited the WNBA is here. Off to a great start. Again, little plug for League Pass. No, we're not sponsored, but maybe we will get sponsored. It's really not that expensive, and you get to see a lot of the games that aren't nationally televised. If you're looking to watch more WNBA, I highly recommend. All right, Carolyn, let's talk about what we are looking forward to this week. Kick us off.
Tennis has been going on, but major tennis is back. The French Open. I'm so excited because we get to bring your French back. I can't wait for the Olympics. So we could just bring all of your French knowledge back. Would you like to try to pronounce what the French Open is called?
No.
Just no? Okay, I call it Roland Garros. That is probably not correct. The French Open, aka Roland Garros, they could be called either. I'm going to say the French Open because I didn't take French in high school. It begins on Sunday, May 26th. You can watch it on NBC. They play on clay for this. I really like when players get dirty. I love in softball when their white jerseys just get covered in, what is it called in softball?
Sand?
Is that
Dirt.
right? Dirt?
Clay.
Dirt. I love in softball when the white jerseys get covered in dirt. And with clay, it's a little bit slippery. You can move and slide on it a little bit more.
It always makes me nervous watching them because I feel like their ankles are just going to snap.
Ankles, and thank God for strong knees. And so they always get covered in this red clay, which I think is just very cool. Who to watch? Iga Swiatek has an 80% win rate on clay. She won in 2022 and 2023. She currently sits at number 1 in the world. This is hers for the taking. Coco Gauff sits at number 3 in the world. Arina Sabalenka sits at number 2. It'll be very interesting. I love to watch. The games are going to be on early in the US, but starts on Sunday, May 26th. What are you looking forward to?
I mentioned earlier women's lacrosse. So the Final Four will take place again Friday, May 24th on ESPNU. Northwestern will take on Florida at 3 p.m. Eastern. And Boston College plays Syracuse at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. Then the national championship is this coming Sunday, May 26th at 12 p.m. Eastern. All games will be played at Wake Med Soccer Park in Cary, North Carolina.
Oh, that's where the North Carolina Courage play for
yes.
the NWSL.
Yes. So if you live near there and don't have plans, you should really try to catch a game. I can guarantee you won't be disappointed because it's so exciting to watch. Really excited to see women's lacrosse next weekend.
That is it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports, rate and subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Your rating and your subscription go a really, really long way. So if you have not done it yet, please, please, please do it. It keeps us going. Share the podcast with your friends. Keep sending us topics you want us to cover on Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.